Thank everybody for joining us. Let's do that again. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, we'll be talking about navigating the grant process. Today, we have three wonderful organizations here to just talk about and share these resources with you. The first one is Frontline Resource Institute. The next one we'll be talking will be Nakodo, and we also have Writing for Green. Um, for um, for today's talk, we will have Aaron and Courtney from Writing for Green, Robert from Nakodo, and myself, Chantel, with Frontline Resource Institute. So today, I would just want to introduce you a little bit about what Frontline Resource Institute is. Um, the nickname for that is free. We do have a small PowerPoint that we'll be sharing. We'll give that a second to come on up. So while that's coming up, so I am Chantel Carmardell. I am one of the Freeze Conceptual Committee members, and I am located in South Louisiana with a local Native American tribe, and we are severely suffering with climate issues and sea level rise and erosion, so much that our community has had to move to a resettle from our community to another community. So so we are on the front lines dealing with these issues. Courtney, do we have those slides? Awesome. You can go to the next one, and I'll just introduce you to a little bit about how free formed and what the background is. So, Margot Brown, Dr. Margot Brown with the Environmental Defense Fund, she ventured out on what is needed for frontline communities. So she's had over 200 conversations with different frontline communities about what are their challenges, what are their needs, what are the core issues that are affecting frontline communities. She spoke with organizations, academia, philanthropy, federal agencies, federal governments, and one clear theme came out in all of that was capacity. Having the capacity to actually fulfill what these frontline organizations wanted to do. So that's when this idea was formed, and Dr. Brown um, used EDF to facilitate this, and they convened a group of individuals um, from across environmental and climate justice, including myself, um, and other frontline communities to form the conceptual committee. This conceptual committee, as you can see, is a very diverse group of individuals. Um, we meet roughly once a month, and we have been meeting for the last 2 years to just try to figure out what we know what the needs are for these communities. How can we be a resource for them? That's how the actual name came about, Frontline Resource Institute. The goal is to really just meet the communities and meet people where they need to be met. Um, Personally, the old adage that came to my mind when we were talking about this was, if you can give a man a fish, but he'll just eat for one day. But if you teach him to fish, he can supply the needs he has for later, and just continually and sustain that. So that is the core point of free. So, what is the Frontline Resource Institute? It is a intermediary organization that provides the following service: pass-through funding, technical organization support, convening and learning opportunities, environmental justice resource for frontline and community based organizations working to advance climate and environmental justice. I know that's a lot. So, intermediary, um, we hope to provide resources. That is the basis of this. It comes, and we are a pass through organization. We are just compiling resources together and pushing them out to frontline communities. There are so many resources, and these are the three that we have chosen to focus on: shared learning, being a resource hub, having a cohort programming and training and webinars similar to what we're doing today, technical assistance, that's scientific support, organizational support. And then the final one is funding and development, direct funding, and supporting the grant process. And that is where we are today. The goal is to not just be a funding source, which we all need that, yes, but it's not just that. We want to teach you how to make that sustainable and allow you to have those resources to keep that sustainable. Um, we have been working with other the Collective Action Fund and the Tides organization to get these things accomplished. We have, in a short year and a half that we've been together, um, have accomplished many things. We've had at least one successful grant cycle, distributing $1 million of funding to 13 frontline organizations. We did that into two tracks: an organizational and strategic development, and organizational capacity and durability. We established partnerships with two organizations, two that we are featuring here today: Writing for Green and Nakodo. We have successfully completed the first grant training with Writing for Green. I have been very fortunate to myself have taken the training with Writing for Green, and it has proven already to be very helpful to our community in itself. Um, and we have completed a needs and priority assessment. We are ongoingly actively doing strategic planning for the organization and developing a comprehensive resource hub to document and share frontline knowledge, because it is important that um, we make sure that we're not just gathering all this information for ourselves and our friends, but we're sharing it out to everyone that needs these resources. And it's so important that um, we do get all these resources out to communities like yourselves that are here. So, saying all that, we are going to jump right into our first presenter, Robert from Nakodo. Robert?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Robert Cabrera, and I am one of the developers of Project Nakodo, and I am calling in from Atlanta, Georgia. And I'm gonna have 5 slides that I have prepared to share with you all what this Nakodo tool is all about. So, Courtney, if you can please go to the next slide. Thank you. So the project objectives has been that how do we find the best matches for grant seekers and grant funders, right? As a small organization founder myself, I've spent many hours, many months looking for funding opportunities, hiring specialists to help me prepare the opportunities, and 6 to 9 months later, some I win, some I lose. And so with tools in the marketplace like ChatGPT, we can now use artificial intelligence or AI to be able to help do the best matches both for those seeking funding and also those looking to place money. So we excel at 2 things. Number one is vetting. Vetting means we use historical data, we look at what your needs are and find the best opportunities for you. And so this is what everyone else offers. What really sets us apart is the second step, which is verifying. So whereas in the marketplace, when there's an opportunity that matches your need, it's sent to you, you apply, you spend maybe 2 to 6 months applying, 6 to 9 months later, you get a yes or no. What we're doing that's unique is that when we find an opportunity, opportunities that match your needs, we find a way to make sure that the funder is aware of who you are and that they do think you're a great opportunity. So that's the verification process. And so only after receiving feedback from the funder do we then recommend to you the funding opportunity. And so, in a summary, we are an AI tool that vets, not only vets, but also verifies funding opportunities. And so that is what we're creating at Nakodo. Next slide, please, Courtney. So how does this work? What's under the hood? It's basically a recommendation engine that leverages key insights for grant matchmaking. So the first thing we've done is we've gone through. We know that the federal government has a lot of money. The EP has a lot of money. The DOE has a lot of money that they have to distribute. But there's somehow a huge disconnect between all that money and us, the folks on the ground. And so we've taken time to look at past historical grant opportunities, 15,000 of them, focused on those that were socially and economically disadvantaged, and see what's made them successful and not successful. And what that's allowed us to do is to identify what are the features that have made those successful very successful. And so once we've identified those features, we look at the announcements and we see what attributes each applicant had. And what this allows us to do is to distill the most significant variables so that when you create a profile on Nakodo, you're already putting yourself in the best light to be able to secure funding. And so this is how the engine works. It's a three-step engine. We look at past historical data, we look at the best features for the profile, and based on that, we match those features to different opportunities. So instead of searching, let's say, 10 opportunities, we search tens of thousands of opportunities to see what is the best match for you. And that's step one. Next slide. Step two is what is the impact. As I mentioned, our goal for the user is simple. You spend less time searching for opportunities for you to attain both vetted and verified opportunities. So what does this look like in practice? I have two journeys here. The first journey at the top is the traditional method, which is that, let's say we're now in September, you are at a community-based organizations and you have a need. And so you start searching for opportunities. And so between now and November, you spend 15 hours researching through announcements, and you find three opportunities that you think a sort of a fit for you. You spend 3 hours writing letters of intent, assuming you can do it an hour later. You submit them, and then in February, of those three, you identify to apply to one. Between February and July, when the application is due, you spend 30 hours, roughly 10 hours a month, preparing one application. And come December, because this is a numbers game, you get your results. And because you only apply to one, chances are you don't get it. Now, what does sort of difference does Nakodo make? Several differences. Number one is the fact that instead of searching just those 15 opportunities, because we are an AI machine-based system, we can search, for example, over 1,500 opportunities, and also used past successful applications to generate 15 letters of intent for you. And we do all this at 0 hour investment to you. And so, and we do this by just having you create a profile on our tool that should take less than 5 to 10 minutes. And so with that information we collect from you, we submit those 15 letters of intent. And let's say you only get invited to a third of those 15, which means you have 5 invitations to do a full application. And all that happens, again, without you having put any effort in there. And so let's say of those 5 full invitations, we're able to confirm 3. So you now have 90 hours to prepare, instead of one application, 3 full applications. And so you have roughly 7 plus 1, 8 months to prepare those applications versus 6. You now submit 3, and let's say you get rejected to 2, get invited to 1, you succeed. So we sort of have several advantages, right? We allow you to succeed by just giving you much more opportunities. Instead of 1, you have 15. We increase your odds by helping you have more time and bandwidth to put forth more applications in the same amount of time. And so it's really leveraging the power of computers and machine learning to be able to give you a better, more fair chance in the grant seeking world. Next slide, please. And so the benefits, and this is my last slide, are that you've saved time researching and drafting LOIs. You've expanded your span of opportunities and your search engine, right? Instead of those 15 that you looked at, you've now looked at 1,500. You've increased your chances of success by submitting 15 LOIs versus 3 to not just opportunities that are vetted but also verified. You have again increased your chances of success by applying, being invited to apply to 5 versus 1. And more importantly, the most precious commodity we have is time. So you now have 6 months versus 3 months to put together 3, not just 1 application, and that increases your odds. So that is our goal, is to help you spend as little time as possible to get as good of a match of finding opportunities as possible and allow you to apply to more opportunities and hopefully succeed that much more. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer questions afterwards. But I'm going to pass it on to my wonderful colleagues at Writing for Green that are going to tell you about some of the wonderful work they've been doing with some of the CBOs in the community. Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Courtney, and I want to take a moment to thank Robert and Chantel for Chantel, first of all, introducing us to Free, and Robert for so clearly describing this new technology in the form of Nakodo. I also want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone who's with us today. We hope that this session is going to help you get over a pain point that so many organizations experience, and that is getting in these grant applications. My name is Courtney, and I'm one of the founders of Writing for Green, along with my colleague Erin Rome, who's also here with us today. And we formed Writing for Green specifically to equip existing and emerging community-based organizations and leaders just like you with the tools and know-how to get in competitive grant applications so that you can have the funding that you need for your environmental justice and cause-oriented work. Our vision is a more equitable allocation of grant funding so that the communities that are hardest hit and on the front lines of the harms of climate change and environmental degradation have the resources they need to confront these challenges. So I want to just introduce you very briefly to the portfolio of services that we offer. We are grateful to have the support of Free and the Environmental Defense Fund, and the portfolio that we've been able to build out is based on my years and Erin's years in the grant writing sector. Erin and I basically reverse engineered sort of the methodologies that we've been using successfully for more than a decade in order to create a training program to help organizations on the front lines to get in competitive grant proposals more effectively, more easily. And so we started out by first producing a live training program. To date, we have trained, I believe it is 13 community-based organizations through Free. And that live training consists of approximately 35 hours of not webinars, but live Zoom. It's more like a classroom. The trainings are conducted in small group format, and they cover everything from, for example, conducting discovery interviews to get the information that you need to put together a narrative, to assembling the supplemental documents that are required with grant applications, to crafting your budget, something that a lot of people find really daunting, to actually putting together the task list that will help you construct a grant proposal in a team. We recognize that many of the organizations that we work with don't necessarily have a dedicated grant writer, They don't necessarily have dedicated development staff. And so we also address how to go through the grant proposal preparation process in a team so that even if you don't have those dedicated staff, you can still get in competitive grant proposals. One thing that our training perhaps does differently than some of the other resources that may already be out there is that we pair our training with ongoing coaching. I know that speaking from my own personal experience, and I think this is true for Erin and most grant writers I know, we all benefited from mentoring in some form or another. We all benefited from being able to consult with people who had done this before, to get our questions answered, to have input, to get that sort of extra amount of guidance when we felt a bit in the dark. And so once people have completed our training, we pair them with a coach. And that coach is an experienced grant writer, someone who has been through the fire and has actually submitted a large quantity of successful applications. And then the organization that went through our training works with that coach over the course of the next year. So this is an ongoing process. This is a very one-on-one customized partnership between the coach and the client. And the goal is to build capacity. This addresses what Chantel was talking about with free, that real need for capacity building. The goal is to build capacity in two ways. First of all, the coach gives the organization that infusion of some extra hours dedicated to the grant writing process. It doesn't mean that the coach writes the grant organization. There is that extra staff person, so to speak, who's available to help out. And then it's capacity building in the sense that the coaching process provides the person and the organization that went through the training with the opportunity to actually put the skills that they learned in the training into practice. And so hopefully, even if by the end of the coaching process, you don't have more paid development staff, for example, hopefully you're able to get in applications in a much more efficient way. And you're able to effectively choose the funding opportunities for which to apply. And you're able to produce proposals that are more competitive and thus get you more of the good results that you're looking for. We're now in the process of building out, taking our live training and finding ways to make it scalable. And so currently we are putting together a series of video-based lessons. They will essentially cover all of the same competencies that our live training has covered, but they'll do so in a way that is asynchronous so that everybody can take those courses on their own time. And they're done in a way that is segmented so that the person taking the course can go through it at their own speed and according to their own schedule, giving both more flexibility to the individuals who are participating and also allowing us to scale the program and reach more organizations, which obviously is one of our main goals. We do plan to pair the e-learning lessons with coaching. So as you'll see in a presentation that Erin is actually going to go through, the video modules include interactive exercises. And the interactive exercises, for some of them, your inputs will come back to Writing for Green or come back to the organization through which you are doing your training, and a coach will be assigned to provide feedback on what you submit through that video module. For organizations such as the EPA's Technical Assistance Centers for Environmental Justice, the TICTACs as they are known, we're going to be conducting a Train the Trainers event. And the Train the Trainers will basically help larger organizations that are going to be assisting smaller organizations, such as the TICTACs, to be able to employ our entire platform, whether it's live trainings or whether it's the asynchronous e-learning videos. They'll be able to employ that and deploy it rather to all the people and organizations on the ground that they are seeking to assist. So we hope that this is going to be a way to really bump up the capacity of frontline organizations to get the money that they need to do their own work. We know, as all of you know all too well, that for a long time, the places hardest hit by environmental challenges are exactly the communities that have not received the equitable allocation of funding, and that oftentimes have been shut out of funding streams entirely. And so both through our training with Writing for Green and through Nakodo, we're hoping to take a step in the direction of making all of these processes more accessible and more equitable, so that all the communities have the ability to address the environmental challenges that they're facing. So with that, I want to turn it over to my colleague, Erin Rome, who is going to take you through one of our brand new video lessons. Erin, take it away.
Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be with you all here today. I'm sorry we can't see you. We think there's a few people out there. So just to underscore a couple of things Courtney said, we're going to share with you in just a second an example of the interactive course that we're going to launch in a couple months. And this course, as Courtney mentioned, is reverse engineered on our extensive decades-long experience. We've both won tens of millions of dollars for our clients. Over the past year and a half, specifically, we've worked with many of the organizations that you all are familiar with from working in the EJ space, like the Bullard Center for Environmental Justice, the Deep South Center for Environmental Justice, Bigs and Greens, Green Latinos, and many others. And we've been honored to be able to help them and serve them and help build the capacity of their organizations. And we're thinking continuously about ways that we can replicate our approach and bring it to more people. So I'm gonna share my screen, and we are going to take you through one of our lessons for our asynchronous course. Courtney, can you, is my screen visible to you?
It is not, Erin.
Okay, let me try.
I'm not sure. There was a delay when I first put up the PowerPoint. I'm not sure if our technical person needs to
All right, I'm
assist with that.
Okay, well, I'm going to assume it's being shared. So we're gonna play through this slide. The video is about 15 minutes long, and there's a couple interactive exercises in here which I'll walk you through as well, and then we'll continue.
So Erin, I'm doubting that it's actually being shared. If you like, I can share from my screen. Oh, there it is. Never mind. We're on.
Start button to begin.
Erin, I think we're having trouble
hearing
any of your audio.
Elevator.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I forgot that I have to have my mic on. So let me just give a little prelude to this as well. So this is one of the lessons that we have at the start of our course is on creating an elevator pitch. So our course, the content of the curriculum essentially takes folks through the entire process of writing a pitch, writing a grant proposal from conceptualization and thinking through the main ideas like the elevator pitch to telling your story, writing a statement need, budgeting, evaluation plan, all that stuff. So this is just one example from the start of our course.
Lesson. Click the Start button to begin. Just like a skilled craftsman, you are aware that refining your communication skills is essential for success in this competitive landscape. Improving your written communication not only enhances your ability to articulate your ideas verbally, but also helps you present a well-structured and compelling case. By crafting clear and impactful statements, you can concisely convey the value and potential of your business. Click Next. By the end of this session, you will be able to improve your ability to concisely and accurately describe, verbally and in writing, a problem in your community. Recognize the significance of consistent and precise communication in conveying your message. Appreciate the importance of clearly articulating the problem or need, proposing viable solutions, and outlining actionable steps to implement those solutions. And understand the relationship between the elevator pitch and the grant proposal. In this lesson, we will explore what an elevator pitch is, why it is relevant, and how it relates to the process and principles of writing a grant proposal. You might be wondering, why are we discussing elevator pitches when I thought this was a course about how to write a grant? Let's find out. Click Next to proceed. An elevator pitch is a short presentation that draws the attention of the intended audience to a problem, the solution, and what they can do about it. It captures the essence of your proposal and is relevant even in the world of grant writing. Click each button to learn more. The pitch, or its elements, can be a game changer when incorporated into a proposal abstract. Picture this. It's like a secret ingredient that instantly captivates the reader's attention and gives them a crystal clear understanding of your project's value right from the start. As you navigate through your proposal, remember the power of your pitch. By strategically incorporating your pitch, you'll grab the reader's attention, ignite their curiosity, and keep them engaged from start to finish. It's lastly, keeping your pitch at the forefront of your mind, which encapsulates your project and vision, is essential for staying focused and on track as the primary proposal writer and communicator. By maintaining constant awareness of your pitch, you ensure that every aspect of your proposal aligns with your core message. It serves as a reminder of your project's purpose and helps you stay grounded in your objectives. What should the pitch incorporate? Click the arrows to find out more. When delivering a pitch, whether verbally or in written form, it is good practice to be succinct and direct. Here's the secret sauce. Aim for a 30-second verbal pitch that captures attention and leaves a lasting impression. In writing, strive for a paragraph consisting of 3 to 5 sentences. Focus on clarity and directness to deliver your message effectively. By honing your pitch, you make sure every word counts and captures the essence of your message. When crafting your elevator pitch, start by addressing the heart. This is where you paint a vivid picture of the population you aim to help, making it crystal clear who stands to benefit. Don't forget to add in 1 to 2 compelling data points or statistics if possible. But here's the golden rule. Keep it concise and avoid overwhelming the reader with a barrage of facts and figures. Remember, you're aiming for an emotional connection that tugs at the heartstrings rather than an overload of intellectual information. Now, let's shift our focus to the solution, the beacon of hope that you bring to the table. It's time to showcase your proposed remedy. But remember to do it at a high, big picture level. Paint a compelling picture that directly links your solution to the problem you just described. By establishing this clear connection, you'll ignite curiosity and enthusiasm in your audience. It's time to bring it all together with a compelling call to action. Remember, your call to action has an immediate impact, so make it exciting. Leave the reader eager to learn more and fully immerse themselves in your proposal. In the context of a fundraising pitch or grant proposal, this is where you get to inspire the reader to support your organization's work through a meaningful financial investment. It's about inviting them to join your mission and make a real difference. Click Next to proceed. Knowing what not to include in a pitch is as important as what you choose to include. When crafting your elevator pitch, avoid using exaggeration, ambiguous statements, or assertions which cannot be easily substantiated. Instead, emphasize the concrete, measurable aspects of the proposal. Remember, authenticity and credibility are the key ingredients here. By staying true to the facts and being transparent, you build trust with your audience and ensure that your pitch resonates on solid ground. So let's keep it real, genuine, and compelling, leaving no room for doubt or uncertainty in your pitch. Lastly, always tailor your pitch to your audience. By understanding your audience, you can adapt your pitch's language, tone, and emphasis to create a genuine and powerful connection. It's about speaking their language, meeting with their needs and aspirations, and engaging them on a deeper level. Click Next to proceed. Please take a moment to read this elevator pitch. In the space provided below, make a list of the things that are lacking or missing from this pitch. Base your list on the criteria we discussed above. A good elevator pitch should include a statement of the problem, a proposed solution, and a call to action. It should be compelling and motivate the audience, whomever that may be, to take action. Also, as we discussed, it should not contain exaggerated statements that cannot be substantiated or be ambiguous. Please take as much time as you need to create your list. Once you are done, click the Submit button.
So this is an example of how we build interactivity even into our online coursework. And for students who are matched with a coach, which hopefully will be every student who takes the asynchronous course, that coach will give feedback on all the writing assignments as well. So we're not sending out people essentially on a life raft all by themselves. We're still giving them some support.
Great job. Let's take a moment and review the elevator pitch example you just looked at and identify some things that are wrong with it. Your list may have included some, all, or none of these items, and that is okay. Click the arrow to proceed. First, the problem statement is too broad. There are no details about the factories or the types of pollution involved. There were also no details on their programs. The language used in asking for support is weak. There were no details on how they will fix the problem. Lastly, it was not clear which community they are supporting. Click Next to proceed. Here is a short quiz to check what you have learned so far. Choose the best answers, then click the Submit button. Click Next to proceed. Which of the following should be included in an elevator pitch? Drag and drop your answers in the correct boxes.
So we all know how difficult these online courses can be. So we do our best to make these interesting and engaging with, we gamify different aspects of the course so people are active.
Oh, you were close.
Oh,
Do you want to try again?
Try again. And in doing so, we believe it helps people stay focused and absorb the information that we're working to convey more effectively. So let's see if I can get it right this time. Problem statement, solution, call to action should be in a pitch.
Correct.
Yes, I got it.
In which sections of a grant proposal might you use your pitch? Drag and drop your answers on the desk.
Shit.
Oh, you were close. Do you want to try again? Correct.
Yay, I got it.
To what types of audiences might you present a pitch? Click the people icons to select your answers.
So we always try to put in context whatever the subject matter is in the lesson and bring it back to how it relates to putting a proposal together. So creating an elevator pitch may not immediately become apparent. Like, well, how is this related to writing a grant? But these are all little steps that we have found as part of our process that we go through, and which and for that reason we've decided to include these things in our trainings.
Correct. Now, we ask that you practice by writing a short pitch about a problem and solution of your choice. Your topic could be based on an existing program or idea for a program that your organization is developing, or it can be fictional. Your pitch should be about 4 to 6 sentences, and if someone were to read it aloud, it should take about 30 to 60 seconds. Write your pitch in the space, and be sure to submit when you are finished to enable you to move on to the next lesson. If you have been assigned a grant writing coach, that individual will provide written feedback on your assignment. For additional guidance during this exercise and for future reference, you may download our elevator pitch tips doc.
Oops, sorry. So embedded in a lot of the sessions are supplemental materials, which can be seen on screen as reference. And they're also going to be accessible via course materials tab, which will be on the navigation menu here as well. So this is another example of how we incorporate coaching into this. So every lesson, even the online lessons, have at least one writing exercise. That results of that writing exercise are connected through an API to our learning management system. And at that point, the student's coach is alerted. They will give them written feedback and have a conversation to help that student really reflect on what they learned and better apply what they learned in the lesson to their actual work.
Before we conclude this lesson, let's do a quick recap, highlighting the relevance of the elevator pitch to the grant proposal and to your role as a grant writer. When you are writing a long and/or complex narrative, it can be easy to lose the connection to the big picture. Sometimes we get so wrapped up in the details, goals, objectives, milestones, measures, data, demographics, staff management, etc., that we forget to tell the story. We forget to remind the reader why the work we are doing is important and worthy of support. Your pitch is the thread that connects all the dots and does so in a very simple, succinct way. You should be reminding the reader about the problem, the solution, and your need for their support throughout the narrative. Use your pitch as a means to get the reader hooked early on in your narrative. And if you do this effectively, you will retain their attention throughout the entire application. Click Next to proceed. Thank you for taking this lesson, and good luck with your elevator pitches. See you in the next lesson.
So that's that. We just wanted to give you a taste of what's to come, and through your own organizations or through one of the Tic Tacs or another institution that we partner with, a lot of you hopefully will have access to this content and to coaches. So again, we can push out this methodology and these resources to many more organizations in the front line and help you all access a lot of that Justice 40 money and a lot of the foundation money that's coalescing around these issues and get it where it needs to go. I'm going to turn things back over to Courtney, and we're going to continue this discussion.
Thanks, Aaron. Aaron, remind us roughly how many of those video lessons will be in the self-directed course?
The online course has about 20 lessons, and just to give you a few examples, the elevator pitch, how to tell your story, how to incorporate data into a needs statement, how to write clearly without ambiguity, how to create a simple evaluation plan, how to create a budget and a budget narrative. These are just some examples of what you'll learn or what you'll learn to do better. And Chantel went through this process. So if any of you have questions for her as we get to the question and answer about the effectiveness and the value of it, please feel free to direct those questions to her directly. And we found that we spent a year developing this content to reflect the approaches that we found to be very highly effective in landing the money.
So before we get into the question and answer section, we're going to do a quick exercise that I hope will sort of set the stage for that. And it's using a Google Jamboard. Some of you may have used those before, which is something that we use in our live courses. In this case, we're going to ask a question and invite you all to type your thoughts into the comments or the chat for this stream. You don't have to actually type into the Jamboard. We'll do that for you. But this is interactive on here. So heads up, if you've been sort of multitasking and listening in the background, hopefully this is an opportunity to get your input. I'm going to share my screen for the Jamboard so that we can see the question for this. And then we're going to invite you all to make your comments in the chat directly. 1 second.
And now we'll find out if anyone's here besides us.
Okay, I am sharing screen. I don't know if you all see that. Can you see it?
Can't see it. I actually tried a minute ago too, and mine wasn't
There
coming up.
seems to be a delay on the screen sharing. This is what happened the 2 times previously, so I'm hoping maybe it's going to pop up.
Maybe we could start
If
by
it doesn't pop up,
posing a
we
question.
can actually, there it is. Okay, well, and there it went. Okay, so there we go. It keeps coming and going. We're going to introduce the question, and then you all can type into the comments or the chat, and we will put it on the screen for you. So the question that we are considering is, what do you find challenging about writing grants or about the grant writing process? What is the particular pain point for you individually or for your organization? Either one of those will be fine. And we're going to use this to sort of inform our Q&A time as well.
Courtney, what I could do is okay.
There it is. I didn't even touch anything. Mysteries of the streaming, but there we have it. So I know that we have some people watching via YouTube. I hope that you can find the comments for that. I'm seeing some come in here. We're going to just take a couple of moments so people can think for a second.
Again, for those who, if anyone is actually there, in the chat, just write a couple words or sentence or whatever, and responding to the following prompt. What do you find challenging about writing grants or the grant writing process? I know this is an issue among every nonprofit that has to raise money, not just in the EJ space, but it's something that we've all confronted. We just want to get some ideas, and then we'll discuss them in just a moment.
We're getting some coming in. Oh, I see in the chat that we have some people writing in as well. That's great. Ali, I see that you say the blank canvas, getting started. I'm going to add that one in. That's always a tough one. I'm seeing connecting with funders. Many are invitation only or have narrow programmatic interest. Many do not do EJ. Great points to discuss. I see budgeting the money efficiently. Oh, that's a good one. As a new grant writer, Nancy says, knowing the best resources to find grants. Sifting through too many grant opportunities and trying to decide. Clearly, oh, that's a good one. Clearly defining outcomes and selling our ideas when the work we want to do is more abstract and less tangible. Yeah, that's one that we've come up against with several organizations. Let's see. Oh. So this is an interesting comment from about maybe we can touch on barriers being removed to allow capacity building instead of having to be shovel ready in some of the new funding that's coming down for environmental justice. And I see someone echoing the budgeting. Okay, I think we have quite a lot there. And one thing that happens in our live trainings is that oftentimes we are able to sort of sort these into categories. So I see here that I believe Aaron has established a few categories of where the questions are grouping themselves, so to speak. There's the search process, knowing what to apply for, knowing where to look if you want to find additional funding opportunities, knowing how to match your interests with those of funders. And then there's the issue of funders being invitation only, sort of that closed circle, and of funders having narrow interest or maybe not being interested in EJ at all. Then in a separate category, we have the writing process itself, that writer's block that can happen when you look at that blank page. Getting started being sort of the hardest part of the process, which for me, sometimes that is so true. Budgets, feeling like you're having to guess at cost, particularly when it comes to staff time. Writing content that is convincing and persuasive. And the issue of, well, I think this one goes into capacity or the search process. Sometimes project-based money can be nice to get, but it can also lead to mission creep. And so there's this like conundrum when deciding what to apply for with regard to that. With regard to capacity, so there's the issue of how to get those general operating expenses that every organization needs. Sometimes funders' interests are so narrow that it all seems project-based. So how do you get the capacity building grants? There's capacity in terms of simply not having enough staff to do all the work that you're trying to do, including the development work, the grant writing. There is convincing funders that you have the capacity to do what you're trying to do. And then balancing shovel-ready projects versus the need to plan. So we have a few different categories that have emerged here. And this is always really helpful for us at Writing for Green to see where you all are really experiencing the bottlenecks and the pain points. I see someone else points out timelines, especially with some of the new funding that is coming up. Sometimes I've seen grants being announced with very short timelines, which if you have a small staff is very, very hard to deal with. So it's good for us at Writing for Green to see all of this because it helps us continually improve our training to make sure that we are addressing what our clients' needs are, what your needs are. And I can say that for the most part right now, our training is covering many of these issues. We help you know how to prioritize among many funding opportunities so that you're using your scarce grant writing hours in the best possible way. We help you figure out which funders are the best match. And of course, as Robert was presenting with regard to Nakodo, we're actually all actively working to develop new technologies to help make that process easier and more automated. Our live training and our video training gives you actual tools, like actual budget tools. We have what we call a budget sandbox, which is an Excel spreadsheet that's already set up for you to help you plug in all the key numbers and produce budgets relatively quickly and easily. We also have training specifically designed to help you get past that blank page, because there's a whole process that should be happening, from discovery interviews to creating a task list, a whole process that should be happening before you actually sit down to write. And we help you navigate that process. Importantly, we also even have a lesson on how to use a team to produce grant proposals, recognizing that you may not be in a situation to make one person solely accountable for the creation of a particular proposal. And I see someone saying that, particularly for time burdened, low capacity communities, do we have any advice or things that we wish grant programs knew? First, oh, and I see this is from someone who is in the process of designing a grant program. That's Liv, we should probably talk about that offline, because as people who've been on the other side of this for years, we certainly would have thoughts on how to actually design a grant program. And some of you may be in the situation of actually becoming regranters at some point, in which case there are a lot of considerations to go into to start removing some of the barriers that have prevented so many communities from being able to access funding streams. But with this, I want to begin to make a segue over to a general Q&A. And I'm so glad to see that people are active in the chat. This is awesome. So we kind of have defined a universe of needs, a universe of things that we can talk about here in the Q&A. I want to just take a moment to remind everyone that Robert is also still here with us with Nakodo. And Chantal is here with us from Free. So feel free to ask any questions that may have come up for you at any point during the session. And yeah, we're sitting here monitoring the chat and we'll chime in. Aaron, I don't know if you have any thoughts to add about the Jamboard. I see here that we're going to provide you with some contact information also in the chat.
I did actually have something I wanted to just to pick out one thing in here, which I think kind of cascades across every organization that I've met, or many. And in a minute, Chantal, I'm gonna call you out, so get ready. And that's getting started. Like, I find even with myself, a lot of times it's really hard to figure out where to start. And I know Chantal expressed this challenge to us during our training. And I know from seeing Chantal's work that she is an exceptional writer, super bright, but everyone has writer's block. And I just want to kind of hear Chantal's perspective on how having an approach and tools and methods, some of which we teach, and having, whether it's a coach or a mentor or a peer that you can talk to. We provide a coach, but it doesn't have to be a coach we provide. It could be someone in your office or someone at a sister organization that you can bounce ideas off. I'm just wondering, Chantal, how do you get over that? When you're looking at a blank page and you're not sure where to start, like what are strategies that you use that you found to be effective?
So yeah, I do love to write, but those first few lines are the hardest thing to get on there. So I do a few things. I just kind of start throwing some ideas together and then seeing where things start to collaborate together. But also, one thing, since I've done the training, having that elevator pitch. I still have mine that I wrote in our training, and that gives me a focus point to actually start with and say, okay, how does this particular grant flow into that elevator pitch and our overall reaching goal for our organization? And so that gives me that launching point to say, okay, I'm pulling these things out. So the training has given me some wonderful tools to get started, but I think is clearly the first step. knowing where you want to go, your organization wants to go, and having that written down and starting with that and just build off of that has always proven to help me.
I love, yeah, and that's actually, it's not maybe apparent to everyone when you look at an elevator pitch lesson, you're like, why is that part of our grant? And it's because that is a starting point. It can frame everything. If you can tell yourself or tell someone you don't know in 30 seconds or less what it is that you're all about in a convincing way, everything is going to kind of flow from that, or it can flow from that. So that can sort of, having that big picture perspective oftentimes I find is a good way to start. And then just collecting as much information as possible, and through a discovery process, a research process. And these are the kind of the steps that we go over in both our asynchronous and our live training, is to help you just have a routine that, some very concrete steps and a process that you can follow to go from, I don't know what to say, to having a really strong grant proposal at the end. Everyone's process is a little different, but we have one that has worked for a lot of people. Chantal, I see a question in the chat that you should answer. I don't know if you can see that. From Louise. Question is, to what extent are Native American communities taking advantage of all these resources? They have often been bypassed on funding. Which have, and what have been the results? Which have. So
yeah, I can answer that. So we are actively involved in free. I do have a coach. So we have several organizations that are Native that are working with free and getting several different resources. So free doesn't just do grant funding; they also connect you with other technical assistance that's needed. It's really a matter of reaching out to free. That's what I was actually doing, typing the website for free, so you guys can have that and just connect with us and see where we can connect. We're trying to reach out to other Native organizations just to get word out that they have these resources. So it's just a matter of connecting with communities, and specifically Native communities, to be able to get out to them that we have these opportunities for you. How can we help better assist you with those, to get those opportunities?
And okay, thanks, Chantal. And there are some questions about. Well, actually, is there a question? Trying to think. Anyone have any other questions? Looking at okay, here. How much do our services cost? So we'll have to talk about that offline. You can contact us, but right now, all of our services pretty much are being contracted through the Environmental Defense Fund and through the TIC tax. So we're more serving the larger institutions. So if you wanted to access our services, it very possibly would not cost you anything. I think James was asked that question. If you want to ping me later and let me know what your organization is and what region you're in, we can make sure you're connected to one of the TIC tacs that is that we're working with, and then you can most likely access our resources through.
And Aaron, I'm going to jump in here because we've had requests for contact information in the general chat, and Aaron, if you can take that from the private chat and move it over, I'm not able to put that in the general chat. Sure. That way people will know how to contact Writing for Green. And I see also a comment in the general chat from Siege that the EPA is very concerned that Native American communities develop proposals for EJ funding, and please communicate with Siege staff for more information in this regard. So it sounds like there are some support resources available there too. But with our contact information, we're happy to discuss with any of you potential ways that you might be able to access our services. I see a comment, a question about who on the Siege staff deals with Native American issues. Maybe someone can respond to that in the chat. In terms of additional questions that have come up. I think we've addressed many of them. I'm looking over our sticky notes to see what perhaps we have not. Ooh, I see here the concern about defining outcomes and selling ideas and the work when the work is more abstract. First of all, with regard to outcomes, one of the sessions that we cover in our training involves logic models. Logic models are kind of one of those things that make everybody groan the same way as budgets. At least in my case, I found logic models at first to be really, really daunting. And they look complicated as a finished product, but the process for getting to that finished product is actually pretty straightforward. And one of the things that we focus on in our training, both for something specific like a logic model and in the training overall, is breaking things down into bite-sized pieces. So at all points, we try to sort of take this big amorphous process that is grant writing, or even a smaller process such as producing a logic model, and separate it into little chunks, so that everything starts to feel much more doable and much more manageable. And with regard to logic models, they actually can be not just a good tool for making your proposal stronger, but also a really useful planning tool, because it will sort of force you to walk through what are your objectives, what are the outputs, the measures, and what are the actual outcomes that you're trying to get to. And it will help you really define what is your theory of change for getting between each of those steps, from getting to from objective to outcome. And when your work is intangible, I've worked with a number of organizations that have this problem. That can be a difficult process, but it is doable. And there are a number of strategies for making that happen. I see here that we do have contact information now in the chat. So feel free to take advantage of that. But I wanted to bring up that logic model example because I think it's a good example of a tool that can help you in defining outcomes even when your work is quite abstract. And it's also a good example of how our training can break things down into a step-by-step process. It's actually quite easy to follow. So I see we have, yeah, go ahead, Aaron. I think we have about 5 minutes remaining.
Yeah, I was just going to invite anyone to submit any new questions if they have anything in the chat. It could be just a general question about tips for writing grants relating to any challenge that you confront or whatever.
I also want to just jump in while we look and see if you have additional questions, and say that our training also does provide tips on writing better in general. As we all know, for any of us, no single training is going to take us from sort of a beginner in the specific type of technical writing that is grant writing to expert level in terms of the writing itself. But we do have tips and tricks such as using passive voice less, looking for those ly adverbs like quickly, like things that you can delete so that your prose is less wordy and more action oriented and stronger. We have really practical tips like that that can also give you a jump up on the writing. I know that AI is something that is on everyone's minds. We hope to be able to, as Robert described, use that in really positive ways in terms of making the process of figuring out which grants to apply for and actually getting that ball rolling easier. But we also are aware that many of you are contemplating how to use AI as part of preparing grant proposals. And that's something that we can address too. There are ways in which it can be used productively. But in the end, there's a lot of pitfalls to watch out for as well. And it sort of doesn't take the place of the process that you're still going to have to go through in order to create the end proposal. You're still going to need to find the information that needs to be in the narrative. And a lot of times that means actually interviewing people and that sort of thing. So while it can be a really useful tool and a tool that in some ways might create more equity, in some ways make inequitable situations worse, it could go both ways. It still is not a substitute for the process itself and for what you'll need to do in order to create that persuasive proposal. But these are all topics that we plan to address for people who take our trainings.
So I think
we have a couple of minutes. Does somebody want to? There was a lot of things on how to look for grants, where and how. Is there some quick resources that y'all can share for folks to jot down where they can quickly help find some resources?
Erin, I don't know if you want to address that question. I mean, we can name a few places. I hesitate to do that because a Google search will reveal the obvious ones, and I don't want to sort of be providing an endorsement of some of them. Here's what I will tell you. In my experience as a grant writer, the databases that are out there that you can pay to subscribe to have been of limited utility to me. I will not say no utility. They've been of limited utility because you still will have to go through all of them and figure out which ones are invitation only. What is the entry point for each one? Is it a letter of inquiry? Is it something else? And that's a lot of that information that you can find out on your own as well. One of the things that I have found most useful actually is to subscribe to the newsletters of like-minded organizations, the email newsletters, to actually look at the annual reports of both funders and other organizations, where a lot of times they will say who they've funded, so you can get an idea whether they fund organizations like yours, or some organizations will say who their funders are, so you can get a sense of where they're getting their funding from. I would also encourage, and I know that this is new, but it's happening more and more within the nonprofit sector. Before, there used to be a lot of territorialism, a lot of this is a zero-sum game, and if I share my funders with you, then I won't be able to get the funding. I think that mindset is very much changing among many of us, and there's much more of a willingness to share lists of funders between organizations. So I would encourage you to have that conversation, even though it may be a bit uncomfortable with your partners in the field. There are also organizations out there with informational newsletters. I'm thinking of a few right offhand where they list funding opportunities as they come up. So I have found those strategies to actually yield more useful funding opportunities than the paid subscriptions where you download a big chunk and then have to wade through them. Robert,
the one thing I will add, an obvious sort of resources. Our job is free of charge to you is to help you mine different things that are out there online. So the one call to action I have for everyone in attendance is you go to nakodo.ai and you sign up. There's a button that says join early bird, be one of the early users, and hopefully your questions around the search process, optimizing your time and energy, we can hopefully help you solve for some of those things so that you can spend majority of your time with folks like Courtney and Aaron, putting together the best pitch for the right opportunities. So I would say go to Nakodo, Nakodo.ai, click that button that says join early bird. It will be ready for use in a couple of weeks. And some of these things around, being efficient with time and researching, we think we may be able to help you work through some of those. Thanks.
So I just want to add something, Courtney. The reason why I kept my mouth shut when the question was posed, how do you, where do you go to find resources and good matches, is because I've used all the big players out there, Instrumental and Candid, which is formerly Foundation Center Online, and Grant Watch, and I spent a lot of money and spent a lot of time. The results were basically useless, which is why we launched or are launching Nakodo with a prototype coming out, as Robert mentioned, in a couple months. And the idea is to completely turn everything on its head that as it relates to grant finding and grant matching, so that we're going to be using machine learning and a whole different approach to match your organization with funders, not just simple enter a few parameters and we'll search your database and give you a list, but really in-depth, complex, sophisticated algorithms that are going to be driving this matching process. So the results are going to be higher quality, and this is going to be free to all frontline organizations. And I think there's going to be a lot of interest, and if there is, we're going to use that interest to drive demand among the institutions, such as the large foundation funders and government agencies, so that they see the value in this and they are willing to tweak the way that they do business too, in terms of finding organizations to give their funds to. So we have big plans because, frankly, the tools that we've used to find grant opportunities are just not very, very good. So that's coming. Over the next several months to a year, you'll see a lot of progress in that front.
Thank you so much, you guys. We want to thank everybody. We are unfortunately out of time. So please see our websites, frontlineresourceinstitute.org, nakodo.ai, and writingforgreen.com. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Chantel.
Thank you.